the Towson, Baltimore, and it's victory for the Baltimore Ravens. The Honolulu blue and gold, or blue and silver, I should say, headed this way from Detroit. This guy covers all things Lions as their beat writer at the Detroit Free Press. His Twitter is swathed in Honolulu blue, as well as his two beautiful children. You can follow him out there at Dave Birkett. That's Birkett. And here come the Lions on extra rest. You had to work on Thanksgiving Day, Dave, but the Lions have had a little time to think about things here after a kind of an excruciating loss to the Vikings, yeah?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, look, it was, I guess we're kind of used to it, that whole work on Thanksgiving thing and coming back on these sort of weeks. But look, from the Lions standpoint, disappointing loss, disappointing performance, I think, overall, the way they came out and had another slow start. But, you know, as they step back and sort of reassess where they stand, no room for error heading forward, but they still have a chance to make the playoffs, and ultimately, I guess that's every team's goal. So the Lions aren't too broken up about where they stand heading into December at 6-5.
Weird team, right? I mean, won some games on the road. The schedule's easing up for them a little bit. I look back at their October. They went over a month without winning a football game, and all against teams that look to be serious playoff teams and real Super Bowl contenders for the most part.
I think that's fair. I mean, look, they, started the season and you play the Falcons to basically a draw. You know, you lose on a runoff at the very end there. And, you have some disappointing performances, I guess, against the rest of the NFC South teams, the Carolina Panthers when Cam Newton threw for 350 and the Saints when you just got trounced. But other than that, the Lions have been in every ball game and they've gotten some good things done from their defense who, is forcing a whole lot of turnovers this year. So there's some good things that the Lions have done. I think ultimately, though, you look at where they are and you sort of scratch your head, too. Why hasn't this offense done a little bit more? Why has the defense, the run defense in particular, fallen apart? So, I think it's a little bit of good, a little bit of bad with the Lions right now.
Secondary is the strength of the team, right, Dave?
On defense, yeah. I mean, obviously, Matthew Stafford on offense, he didn't have his best game on Thanksgiving, but, anytime you have him pulling the trigger, you got a chance, especially late in ball games. But defensively, yeah, the secondary has been playing really well. Darius Slay, Glover Quinn, both those guys, they're top cornerback and safety, should be Pro Bowl bound. They're both having really good seasons, and they help make up for sort of the lack of pass rush that this Lions team has. I think they're tied for 21st in the NFL in sacks, and Ziggy Ansah hasn't quite been himself. So they signed Dwight Freeney. We'll see if that can help out. But right now they're getting things done defensively with that secondary.
Where are we in measuring Matt Stafford other than his salary, which gets pointed out from time to time? We have a similar circumstance here, Dave, with Joe Flacco as well. Flacco's got a ring, and much like Brian Billick always said, they say when you win the Super Bowl, they can't take it away from you, but they'll try, And in the case of Flacco, they try. In the case of Stafford, for the whole organization there, it's so pie in the sky anytime I've talked to anybody about the Detroit Lions, back to the days when Schwartzy was coaching there and whatnot. The expectations are always there, but sort of kind of not really. I don't think the fans there would really know what to do with themselves if they were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, Stafford doesn't have the hardware like Flacco does, and I think that's what really rubs people, the wrong way. That look, he's put up he's had some really nice seasons, 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns back in 2011. I mean, last year set an NFL record for comebacks with 8, in the fourth quarter, and he's done some really nice things. But for all of that, he's never won any big games, at least in the playoffs. And people will tell you against good teams on the road. And I guess this would be one that, if he can get a win against the Ravens on the road this weekend in a situation where, a loss makes, the possibility of making the playoffs a really tough thing to do. I think maybe that's something that fans could look at Stafford and say, hey, there's finally a big win. Maybe we do have something here that can some momentum that can carry on into January.
What is fascinating, they're now a pair of 6-5 teams, and they've had different journeys, but certainly the rest of the journey, easy schedule or not, there's a cat fight in that NFC. In the AFC, the Ravens are in the catbird's position. They're going to see a lot of backup quarterbacks after they see Stafford and Ben Roethlisberger. And, for me, the NFC, it's tough over there right now. I mean, especially for the eliminated Cowboys and the Redskins and the Cardinals and the Packers and these teams that aren't a part of this thing. It really does feel like it's down to Seattle, Detroit, Carolina, and Atlanta. But, that's 4 pretty good teams. Only 2 of them are going to make it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, look, you could go 10-6 in the NFC this year and not make the playoffs, and that's a situation that the Lions, because they lost to the Panthers and because they lost to the Falcons and the Saints, that's a situation they legitimately could find themselves in. And that's why I said, they have no real room for error heading into this weekend's game against the Ravens, because if they get to 11, they're going to get in. I just, those other teams, they all play each other, the Panthers and the Falcons and the Saints and the Seahawks. Everybody's playing each other down the stretch there. The Lions don't. The Lions don't have a team with a winning record on their schedule after Sunday's game against the Ravens. So, if they can get by this one, then certainly, there's some good vibes, and you look ahead at the next couple of weeks and you say, maybe we can get to 10 or 11 wins and maybe we can get in the dance.
Dave Birkett covers all things Lions for the Detroit Free Press. You can find him at Dave Birkett, that's Birkett, as well as at FreeP, that's FREEP.com out in Detroit. He'll be coming in for the game this weekend. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Costas Inn. Good enough for the Today Show and my mom. The big fat crabs, the tasty crab cakes, the pit beef, the pit stand. The legend continues. I had my Dundalk High Hall of Fame induction party over there a few weeks ago, as well as a great conversation with C.J. Mosley that you can find out in our buyatoyota.com audio vault. Costas Inn also ships those crab cakes. You can learn more at costasinn.com. Also brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need Freedmont's education online. If you're buying, selling, or even thinking about it, just need some good advice from some good people. Freedmont.com is the way to do that. Dave, for you with the Haloti Ngata and the run stop and the injury, I know it's a disappointing. Haloti's very popular around here, especially amongst those of us who eat Royal Farms chicken from the ads back in the day. But he's a missing ingredient there, and apparently the run stop has changed without him, right?
No, they haven't been good stopping the run without Haloti. I mean, he got hurt, obviously, the week before the Saints game. Since then, they've been giving up about 130 yards on the ground. They gave up about 75 on the ground before that. And really, he was, look, even at his advanced age, he's a guy that, he was still playing well against the run and doing some good things. And I think a lot of people looked at him as the best run defender on this team, at least among defensive linemen. And since they've lost him, they've really lacked that presence inside. And that's something that no matter what they've done, here the last couple of weeks, they haven't been able to solve it. I mean, they gave up 200 yards rushing in back-to-back games, and then they come back last week against the Vikings, and they gave up another 75 on one drive to start the second half, and that's really when things went haywire for them. So an area that they need to solve, and they need to solve quick without Haloti Ngata.
For you, who's their best player, Dave, at this point? I've heard various things, but I would think it comes from the secondary. I mean, this kid Slay has really come on, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL right now, and I think that's probably. I mean, look, Stafford again, quarterback. He's playing well. He's not obviously Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, but he's in that next echelon. But if you're going non-quarterback division, it's probably Slay. I mean, he's just having a really good season, and he's a really good player. The Lions have put him on the best player on opposing teams, the best wide receiver, and really shut opposing wide receivers down. So he's a guy that you certainly look at, like I said, he's having a Pro Bowl type season for them.
Well, I know one of the reasons they spent all that money on Ricky Wagner was to bring him in to shore up that offensive line to protect Stafford, so he could get the ball out to Jones and to Tate and the big tight ends as well. Some thoughts about the offensive line and where Rick Wagner is, because there was a lot of angst around here about letting him get away. It was a lot of money. We all sort of understood that, but how we would replace him. Hey, look, the Ravens are still trying to figure the whole offensive line thing out. Austin Howard has done a nice job here this year, despite some injuries that he's playing through. He's a real gamer of a guy and a good guy as well, as is Rick Wagner. Last time I saw Rick, he was sporting his Milwaukee Brewers hat at BWI right after he signed his deal. Yeah, no, I mean, look, Wagner's a guy that I think he's disappointed expectations, to be honest with you. I mean, Lions paid him a lot of money, highest paid pure right tackle in the NFL, and he hasn't quite lived up to the billing. He had dealt with a little bit of injury this year, had the ankle injury. He's given up a couple sacks. He's had a little bit of uneven play. He's struggled against some of the best pass rushers he's faced. Yeah, I think everybody thought he was going to really help that offensive line as a pass protector. And when Taylor Decker went down at left tackle, that he might be their best lineman, and it hasn't turned out that way. So a little bit of a disappointment so far, but now that he's starting to get a little healthy, you're starting to see him play a little bit better, and there is some hope for the Lions in that regard. Dave, I know you cover the whole league in addition to covering the Lions, and we had the good fortune on Monday night of being the only game out there. I'm sure you were scouting and knowing the purple enemy here. Some thoughts about the Ravens that you saw on Monday night. Certainly the first thing that jumps out is Terrell Suggs is pretty good, isn't he?
Yeah, no, Tuck's had a good game, and I think everybody that's ever has watched this team for the past decade or whatever it's been certainly knows that, and he's going to give the Lions fits. I mean, the Lions, I mentioned it, their pass rusher, their pass protection has not been great this year. Matthew Stafford is taking a lot of hits, a lot of sacks. Not just Wagner, but Decker, since his return, hasn't been sharp. The guys that they had filling in for Decker before that haven't been great. So, that's certainly an area of concern. Both on the edge and the interior presence, obviously. I mean, Williams is a heck of a player, too. So we know the Ravens are a really good defensive team, really good special teams. We'll see if they have enough offense to beat the Lions, and I think that's the one area that maybe the Lions have a little bit of an edge. The Lions haven't always played great offensively, but in terms of overall skill position players, the depth that they have at the wide receiver spot and at quarterback, I'd give the Lions a little bit of an edge there.
Dave Birkett covering all things Detroit Lions. You can follow him out at Detroit Free Press. He's going to be in town this weekend for the game. And if you had to take Stafford or Flacco at this point, you'd take Stafford, yes?
I would. Yeah, I think Stafford's a better player. I mean, he's a little bit younger, and, he's, like I said, Stafford he's certainly not Aaron Rodgers. Nobody would confuse him for that. He's had his ups and downs. He didn't have some great moments against the Vikings on Thanksgiving, but I think he's the better overall player.
We've seen all of your division other than you, and I know you've seen most of it as well, and probably have laughed at our loss to the Chicago Bears, but I think everybody's laughing about the Vikings at this point. I mean, I've been watching football a long time, and I go back to the Vermeil, Kurt Warner thing and whatever, but what Zimmer has managed to do up there with now the third-string quarterback and what Case Keenum represents at this point, which is probably a little bit of a wall to getting Teddy Bridgewater back, which I think everybody thought that was going to happen. Case Keenum doing his most to do that. This has been a real lost opportunity for the Lions, though, in a year where Aaron Rodgers goes down, right?
I think that's why fans are frustrated at it, because you look at the best player in the division, maybe the best player in football going out, and you sort of look around and you see, the Bears starting a rookie quarterback, the Vikings have a backup quarterback. Even though Minnesota has a pretty good defense, there's, you sort of look at the competition, you say, this is the Lions' chance. I mean, they haven't won a division since 1993, and for them to lose some of the games that they've lost and to have some of the stumbles that they've had, it's been frustrating for a lot of people around here. Look, personally, I think the Vikings are a really good team. They have a really good defense. They probably have better skill position players outside of the quarterback position than the Lions, and they're getting great play from Keenum. So I understand why the Vikings are winning, and they're a team to believe in. But it's still tough for Lions fans to take when you look around and you say, it's Case Keenum, and he's leading us. He's leading the division right now.
Yeah, Case Keenum came out of a tree and beat us in Houston a couple of years ago. At least we got even on Monday night for all of that. The problems the Lions have running the ball. If I'm going to look at someone at Houston asked me last week, what's the formula for the Ravens? I'm like, well, part of the formula is a bad quarterback, right, or a backup quarterback. That's how a lot of the Ravens' victories have come this year and how they've eaten, and they'll continue to do that as we're going to see Deshaun Kaiser and Jacoby Brissett in the coming weeks. But the idea here is stop the run, get after the quarterback, get bad down and distance, and get the ball up in the air. Getting the ball up in the air against the Lions might not be the best way to do this. I think the Lions are as formidable a passing group as we've seen, but a poor run team. I would expect that if they try to run the football, the Lions are going to find themselves in 2nd and 11, 2nd and 9, and 3rd and long a lot.
Yeah, no, their running game has been the thing that's held this offense back. I mean, they're one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL, and in fact, it's been a downward trend. You go back under Jim Caldwell, I mean, they've gone from about 88 yards a game to down near 80 yards a game, and they have not played they have not had a top half of the NFL. Their running game hasn't ranked in the top half of the NFL since Barry Sanders last season playing. So it's been a long time. The Lions can't run the ball. Look, give Jim Bob Cooter credit for trying to run the ball, but it's something that they just have not been able to do, and really that's a big reason that's holding the offense back.
Caldwell and those guys in trouble if this thing takes a turn here and they don't make the playoffs. I mean, is 10 wins and not making the playoffs safe, or is it just making the playoffs at this point?
I think 10 wins is probably safe for them. I mean, look, this team no doubt has designs on making the playoffs, and that's the expectation. They would be disappointed if they don't. But Jim Caldwell also got a contract extension at the start of the season and back into late spring. So he's in a position right now where, and I don't know all the details on it, but he's in a position where you give a guy a contract extension, you certainly think he's probably safe. So barring something dramatic down the stretch here, I would think that he probably returns for another season as Lions coach.
You expecting the Lions to win on the road this week, Dave?
This is a toss-up game for me, and I think it's going to be a tough one for them. I mean, look, good defenses like this, they've struggled against the Panthers. I mentioned that. The Saints, both those teams got up big when the Vikings, when they give up a lot of pressure, when Matthew Stafford takes a lot of sacks and a lot of hits, the Lions tend to have long days. So still a little bit of time before kickoff for me to change my mind, but right now I'm sort of leaning Ravens.
Leaning Ravens. That's what we like to hear out of Detroit, Dave. Take care of yourself. Rest up. Take care of your kids. We'll see you when you get to town this weekend. We'll make sure you don't eat any tourist crab cakes, all right?
All right, Nestor. We'll see you on Sunday.
You got it, Dave Birkett joining us here from the Detroit Free Press. You can follow him at Dave Birkett. He is the Lions beat writer out there and has been for a number of years, as well as a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. So I didn't give him the kick on the backside to say, are you going to vote for Ray Lewis or not, asking those tough questions of the Hall voters. I'll wait till we get to Minnesota to do that when I get Dave on Super Bowl week. You can find me out on the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox free of charge, and all brought to you by our friends at Planet Fitness at planetfitness.com. $10 a month, never any commitment, and you can always get that holiday inspiration at Planet of Triumphs. If there's any breaking news at all this week from the Orioles, from the Ravens, getting you ready for the game on Sunday against the Lions, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net is my email address. I prefer praise to criticism, but, as Coach Billick says, have at it. Also want to give a shout out to our friends at Coppin State University. We are your home for Eagles basketball this winter, as well as the Lady Eagles. You can hear more and know more at CoppinStateSports.com. We had a great conversation with Juan Dixon as well as Dwayne Burrows earlier this week. And you can hear that out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.